what I want to talk about today is not directly related to the movement. In fact, it's related to every area of life. But I think one of the reasons many of us got involved in the movement, I think a lot of us in 2017 after the terrible terrorist attack at the Ariana Grande concert and Borough Market, Westminster Bridge, it was emotion. It was pure emotion. I'd been aware of what was happening in the country for many years, but had not stepped into the melee because it hadn't reached that point where I felt I had to. But the emotion of what happened in 2017, I think, led many of us with heavy hearts to get involved. I remember sitting at Gatwick Airport after I'd done the first event in Veterans Against Terrorism event in Whitehall. Funnily enough, a very similar place to where we're going to be doing the event on the 26th of October. And I sat in Gatwick Airport, and it was a strangest feeling. A heaviness just came upon me, and it was almost like there was a voice saying, your life has just changed forever. And in a very real way, on lots of different fronts, that was very, very true. So there is a lot of emotion involved in the movement, and I think everybody that I know that's involved in this are emotional people and are caring people. They're doing it because they care about the country. If you didn't care, you'd just go on with life. You know, if I just ignored it and went on with life, I could be sitting making huge amounts of money, doing my business, and just totally ignore what's going on in the world. But to me, there's more important things than money, and that's why I'm involved in this, because the emotion of it drives you to do it. But I want to talk about that emotion, because that emotion is not just to do with the movement or how we feel about the movement. And I met a gentleman yesterday that I've known for many, many years, a really good, solid guy, and very, very level-headed, not a sort of, how should we say it? He's not highly strung, right? He's a proper lad, and he opened up to me about just some things that had been going on in his life and the effect it was having on him. And I haven't been through the same as what he's been through, but I knew what he was going through in terms of how he felt in himself, and he was suffering a deep, deep heartbreak. And because I'd been through that myself, I was able to hopefully help him, and not even try and offer him advice, but just say, do you know what, I know exactly how you feel, and mean it, and know what that emotional heartache and heartbreak feels like. And I got to thinking about this, and in fact, in the last 2 weeks, another person I know very, very well, we were very close when we were kids and all that sort of thing, he came to me, and he was really suffering. He suffered from mental health issues for many years. And again, until very recently, I would have been very dismissive of people who got overly emotional and people who complained about mental health issues. I would have just went, man up sort of thing. But when you've been through it yourself, and you've been through those dark places, it gives you an ability to empathize with people. Now, it doesn't mean that you carry people's burdens, and it doesn't mean that you basically stop your life. Well, sometimes it does mean that, but it doesn't mean that you have to do that. You stop your life to help them, but it means you have time for them, and you genuinely care about what they're going through. And I think you can only get that through personal experience and through going through those times of intense suffering and intense pain. And as I've thought about this, and I'm going to bring this back to a theological point, and again, I apologise if that's not your cup of tea. Well, I don't apologise. I mean, I don't really care. But the reality is there is a theological issue with this, that God himself, the God of the Bible, the God of the Old and New Testament, Jesus Christ, the God-man, understands our suffering in a deep, deep way, but not only understands it, but by his Spirit goes through that suffering with us. When you're in pain in your heart, if you cry out to God, when you're totally, totally desperate, there's a man called Joel Beakey. He's a pastor and church in Grand Rapids in Michigan. And he says this, he says, a believer, a Christian always has somewhere to go, no matter how weak a Christian you are. And I've said it before, I'm the weakest there is. But a weak Christian always has somewhere to go. He can always go to his Father. He can always go to his older brother, Jesus Christ. That's the Christian life. But the reality is, when you're going through those deep, deep times of suffering and that deep heartache and those torments in your mind, Christ identifies with you because Christ has been through. You read what happened to Christ in Gethsemane. You read what the psalmist says about Christ, prophesying about Christ. When Christ even cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? The intensity of that suffering. There's no closer love relationship in the universe and outside the universe, in the whole of creation and outside of creation. There's no closer bond of love than there is between God the Father and God the Son. And at Calvary, that was ruptured. That was ripped. That was ripped to pieces on Calvary as Christ paid for the sins of the whole world. Now, I know this is really deep stuff, but the point I'm trying to make is, probably very clumsily, is that if you're suffering mentally or in your heart, emotionally, and you feel it, when you're suffering, you feel it in your heart very, very deeply. There's always somewhere to go if you've got God in your life, if you're a Christian. There's never any, and you feel despair, you feel absolute despair, but there's never any reason to despair, and there's never any reason to give up hope, because in those sufferings, and even though you might not feel it, if you cry out to God and you cry out to Christ, in those sufferings, and in that mental pain, and in that emotional pain in your heart and spiritual pain, Christ is there with you, and Christ fully identifies with it, and Christ ministers to it and heals it. The Bible says that Jesus heals the brokenhearted, that God heals the brokenhearted. He binds up the brokenhearted. And that's a very deep thing. That's a very, very deep thing. I don't understand it. I don't understand how it all works. But I think, again, this is something totally off the wall, not to do with the movement, but it is to do with the movement. Not to do probably with a lot of people that are watching, but it's to do with everyone that's watching. And it's just a personal anecdote of how, when I've been through emotional turmoil and pain, and spiritual turmoil and pain, heartache, mental, emotional pain, and been brought through it, and I believe by God and others, then I can hopefully reach out to other people and say, look, there's hope. You know, a year ago, I was a complete mess. But there's hope and there's healing, and you can help other people. When you come through it, you can help other people, and never give up hope. And if you're totally desperate, if you feel you're at the end of your rope, you should cry out to God anyway. But if you feel like you're totally at the end of your rope, you cry out to God. He will hear you. He will answer you. If you cry out with a pure heart, well, not with a pure heart, just with all your heart, because none of us have pure hearts. If you cry out, God will heal you. God will hear you, and he'll heal you. Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, again, it's Sunday, so I'm allowed to preach a Sunday sermon once in a while. Used to do it a lot more when I was younger. But yeah, God bless you all, and I hope that this video helps somebody on the channel. Like I say, it's not the usual content I do, but it's from the heart, and it's emotional, because what I've seen in the last 2 weeks with two men, proper men, not wimps that are always crying about this, that and the other, proper men who came to me, and hopefully I helped them, but I couldn't have helped them if I hadn't been through what they'd been through. See you all soon.